Were we on stage 6 or 8 load shedding in the last few days? Now some areas experiencing rolling blackouts that were prolonged for about 12 hours, while others power was out for about 10, 11 hours. So the Minister of Electricity, though, saying that we were in stage 6, and in his regular briefing, he also spoke about some of the challenges with the unit's breakdowns. So let's now speak to Jacob Maroga, who's the former Eskom CEO, who's joining us live now. Thank you so much, Mr. Maroga, for your time. Eskom's official rolling blackout stages sometimes don't reflect the reality on the ground. And I'm going to start with this because there was a bit of confusion. From where you were sitting, were we on stage 6 as communicated in the last few days, or not really? We experienced stage 8 or possibly, I don't know.
Well, I think we're in stage 6. I think in Johannesburg particularly, I think the changes that were made by city power to the schedule, I think, complicated matters. The cycles of load shedding changed, so a lot of people, I think, experienced a lot of daytime hours of load shedding, and it felt like it's a higher stage. But I believe we're in stage 6. It's how it was implemented, and I think the changes between Eskom and city power were not well handled. That was the reason, in my view.
Okay, and at the same time, there was also a little bit of confusion. I mean, a number of people wondering if this was really one of the real reasons, as Eskom was saying that, one of the reasons for the higher demand could be ramped up air conditioner use as a heat wave, had hit much of the country. I wonder, in your view, is this a feasible or plausible explanation as well?
Yes. Look, heat or a heat wave triggers people to demand cooling, and then you end up with air conditioning in offices, in houses, and that increases the load. Similarly, or the opposite happens in winter, where you switch on your heaters. That also create a huge load. So a heat wave does impact on the demand. But I think the underlying issues are we've got a vulnerable system. Ordinarily, even if you have a heat wave, you need to have a cushion or a reserve margin to be able to ride through the heat wave without problems. But because we've got a vulnerable system, and once we have a huge demand and a few units trip off the system, then you end up with a crisis and you end up with the high stages of load shedding.
So what does it mean then going forward? Because if we're hearing Eskom talking about unit breakdowns and them having increased in recent weeks, and now we're either in a heat wave or will either be in winter, and demand is certainly going to skyrocket given some of the weather patterns, what does it mean then for ordinary South Africans? Because it doesn't look like the system could be coping with these various needs.
Well, I think let's just go back, in terms of the issues that need to be focused on.
Yeah.
We've got a coal fleet that is not performing well. And the focus should be making sure that we've got a coal fleet that have a consistent performance. That's where the focus is. I think the whole energy plan, the number one priority is to stabilize the performance of the coal fleet. And I think there's been periods where it looks like it's stabilized before the stage 4 and the stage 6. But you could see we're still vulnerable. But my view is that I think there is some positive, even if we're at stage 6, the fact that there's been times, multi-days when we didn't have load shedding is still positive. But it still underlines the fact that until we've stabilized the performance of the coal fleet, we will still be vulnerable to this, unannounced or unanticipated high stages of load shedding.
And in your assessment then, looking at the vulnerability of the system right now, how often can we expect those unannounced different stages?
Well, it's difficult to say how often, because, it's unstable, unpredictable. You can't say it's not going to happen in the next 2 weeks or whatever. But all it means is that we still have to focus to make sure we've got a stable grid. And it's going to take months for me, if not a number of years, to get the stability right so that we can actually say we are now out of load shedding. I mean, it will take a few months of no load shedding to say we are now stabilized and we've got load shedding behind us. So it's going to take some time for it to stabilize.
So could, I wonder how much of reprieve then will we get when possibly Unit 2 and Unit 5 at Kusile come online, as, some are looking towards this as possibly something that could help ease the load?
Yeah, look, the Kusile units, coming back on load is going to be a big help. They're big units, and if they are stable in terms of their performance, they're going to help stabilize. The Quebec unit, once the two units are also together back online, that is going to assist. But we need to understand that you have a 40 gigawatt fleet, and anything that happens, even if you've got the Kusile unit back, if anything happens to the other units, you still have a situation where the system becomes vulnerable. Then you end up with load shedding.
I know you were once at the helm, but I'm going to ask you, looking at the situation right now, if you were in the CEO seat again, what would be your priority to try and get us out of this?
Look, I think the priority is what I think the Eskom leadership is doing, is making sure that they can stabilize the coal generation fleet, and the rest of the stakeholders, including government, is to give them financial relief to be able to do what they need to do, is for the rest of society to look at reducing demand. But it's a societal thing. I mean, Eskom is at the main driving seat, but it's a total industry issue that needs to be dealt with, and dealt with for the long to medium term. Because if you just look at quick fixes, we may be in this period for a long time.
All right, so I hear you say that then everyone must come together, and we need a little bit more, to exercise a bit more patience. But as you say, that they are focusing on the right kind of areas. But let's see then what happens, and one hopes that it's resolved soon, because the heat wave has been very unforgiving. Thank you so much, Mr. Maroga, for your time. That was the former Eskom CEO, Jacob Maroga.